If you're a 10 series or 1080 Ti Pascal GPU owner, do you need to upgrade now to the 30 series NVIDIA GPUs? Well, of course, you don't need to do anything. If your GPU is working perfectly fine, you're more than welcome to continue to use it. But the question here is, do you want to upgrade to the 30 series? I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I think you should consider it. So let's get started. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We do a lot of content not only on GPUs, industry news, on PC hardware, water-cooled builds. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, leave a comment below, and turn on those notifications. So let's basically talk about 5 different reasons why a current Pascal 10 series owner, maybe you have a 1080 Ti, a 1080, a 1070, why would you want to upgrade to the RTX 3000 series? The first reason is going to be that now there definitely is a pretty substantial performance gap between something like a 1080 Ti and something like a 3080, which is priced right around what the 1080 Ti used to cost. In fact, it's a fairly substantial performance increase. The 3080 even trounces on the 2080 Ti, so you can imagine the amount of performance it has on something like a 1080 Ti. Now, of course, this is all assuming when the cards are in stock again and you can actually get it for a fair price. Right now, I realize that stock is low. The launch just happened. There's extremely high demand, but eventually it's going to kind of even out. There's still going to be 10 series owners. These GPUs will be in stock, and that's really where this video is focused. Right now, of course, it's difficult to get the GPU anyway, but as soon as stock releases, I think you're going to have a pretty good performance reason to jump to something like a 3080. In fact, it doesn't even have to be a 3080. Even the 3070 performed better than the 2080 Ti according to NVIDIA, or at least close to it. And of course, we know that even though it's a marginal performance bump from the 2080 Ti to the 1080 Ti of the Pascal generation, it's still a fairly decent performance bump depending on the 10 series GPU that you have. But certainly if you have a 1080 Ti, I think the best bang for your buck will be the 3080 when that finally stabilizes. And of course, whenever AMD finally releases their GPUs, that's going to enter into the fray and competition as well. The second reason that you should consider a 30 series GPU, alright, so maybe you skipped the 2080 Ti, the 20 series GPU. I don't blame you. For the most part, the value for the performance dollar wasn't really that much greater than something like a 1080 Ti. The GPUs were considerably more expensive. We got the 2080 Ti at $1,200 compared to the 1080 Ti, which was basically just $699. So having said that, now it makes a lot more sense. After you skipped one generation, you definitely get that price to performance bang for your buck back with the 30 series GPUs. And it's also fair to say that by now, if you bought the 10 series close to when it released, or at least a few years ago, you've definitely gotten your money's worth out of it. And they're still worth a decent amount, especially something like a 1080 Ti or even some of the Titan XP cards. They're still worth a decent amount on the secondary market. So you could realistically have used it for a few years, sell it on the used market, and use those funds to purchase something that's going to last you for another few years. So that makes a lot of sense, especially since you skipped the 20 series GPUs. Makes a lot more sense than somebody with a 2080 Ti jumping into a 3080 or something like that. You're going to have a lot bigger of a loss there, as opposed to somebody who a few years ago got a 1080 Ti and now wants to jump into the 30 series. So the coast is clear. I think you're safe to be able to do this upgrade without too much issue. The third reason you may want to consider upgrading to a 30 series GPU from your Pascal generation GPU. There's definitely been a lot of advances in technology where little by little the 10 series GPUs will sort of start to get left back with updates and things of that nature. For example, ray tracing is much improved with the new Ampere architecture. Of course, we know that ray tracing was really kind of a miss in the 20 series GPU. Part of the reason why you probably skipped it, NVIDIA really did kind of overpromise on ray tracing when they announced the 20 series GPU, but It didn't really make any sense at first. They were still developing it. There was still a lot of ground to cover before the technology was really mature. Games didn't support it as well. I think it took weeks before the first game actually implemented it. But now it's a little bit more mature. More games are taking advantage of ray tracing and DLSS and different AI type of configurations for games that are just going to make your experience not only smoother and better, but a lot more aesthetically and graphically pleasing as well as you play whatever your favorite game is, especially the newer AAA titles. Now, the 10 series GPU pretty much is going to be left in the dust. Even like a 1080 Ti, it's not going to be able to handle the ray tracing NVIDIA has incorporated into the 30 series GPU, so that makes it certainly a very good reason to upgrade, because that's the future path NVIDIA and game developers are taking. They're really trying to take more advantage of these advanced technologies that just make the gaming experience a lot better in both performance as well as in the visual aspects. So as you have a 10 series GPU, as more new games come out that are much more demanding, you're going to have to play at lower and lower resolutions, therefore sort of handicapping and bottlenecking your visual as well as your performance in competitive games. So it definitely makes a lot of sense if you skip that 20 series GPU in order to go into the 30 series GPU. Now, the 20 series, like even a 2080 Ti, of course it can do ray tracing. It has that just like the 30 series GPU, but it's going to be at a considerably lower level than the top end 30 series GPUs of today, just because the Ampere technology really is a pretty significant leap in performance. That's why it's been sold out. That's why there's such high demand for it. It really makes a lot of sense in both performance as well as price to bridge that gap between the 10 series and the 30 series GPUs. Fourth reason why you may want to upgrade your Pascal generation GPU. This is going to be more especially if you have the Founders Edition. While they were definitely very high build quality, like a 1080 Ti Founders Edition felt very, very good in terms of its build quality. The design aesthetic is really stunning. I love the way they look. But it really faltered in one significant area, and that's thermals. It's a very hot GPU. It's a blower style GPU, as they're termed, as opposed to something that has multiple fans like a third-party GPU. Now, these Founders Edition GPUs ran extremely hot. And of course, if it's going to be running that hot, it's only going to be able to run up to a certain amount before it starts to throttle down on performance, not to mention be extremely loud in your room that you're playing, and also generate a considerable amount of heat out of the back. Now, these work great for like mini ITX in very tight cases, or even multiple GPUs and things of that nature. But in general, if you have a case with decent airflow, it's much better to get something from this generation now, just because coolers have improved across the board. Not to mention the Founders Edition, which was much improved for the 20 series with dual fans. And now the new Founders Edition cooler, it's really unique, really spectacular. It has like a pass-through design, considerably better than the blower style before. Noise and thermals are much, much better. You can actually have a much cooler GPU, so it's definitely worth that leap. Now, if you have a third-party GPU from Pascal, it's not going to be as much of a difference. Let's say if you have an Asus Strix 3-fan GPU, of course, those would cool the GPU very good as well. So then this isn't really much of a concern for you in terms of the cooler. We're mainly talking about the Founders Edition owners, and there are definitely a lot of them, because I think NVIDIA did produce a decent amount of, 1080, 1070, 1080 Ti's. I remember I would see them for sale at Best Buy and Micro Center, so they were definitely fairly common, widely available. Not to mention there's some different ones like from Asus, the Turbo, which was also a blower style GPU. So if you have something like that from Pascal, upgrading now to the 30 series with a better cooler is going to make a huge difference in your gaming experience as well as in the overall performance. And the last reason why you may want to in fact upgrade your Pascal series GPU to something more modern, that's going to come down to monitors. With the 3000 series GPU, specifically the 3070, 3080, not to mention the 3090, the monitors that we can now use specifically in terms of resolution, like 4K, high refresh rate, these have opened up many possibilities. Basically, if you have a Pascal GPU, a 1080 Ti can do 4K, but it really struggles in most games. You're going to get fairly low frames per second. Not to mention, you can't really take advantage of the technologies we mentioned before, like ray tracing and DLSS for your performance as well as your visual aspects. So if you want to experience the newer monitors that are coming out, not only the the extremely high refresh rate monitors that are like 360 hertz if you're, an esports player or a competitive gamer. If you want to experience 4K gaming at really high settings with frames per second going above 144 hertz, which the 3080 and 3090 can now do, you definitely need to consider the upgrade to the 30 series. Not to mention 8K. I mean, nobody's going to be playing at 8K. Right now, it's really more of like a novelty. But in the future, if you're the type of person that was using maybe multiple SLI GPUs in Pascal to run 4K, I'm sure playing 8K with really powerful GPUs may appeal to you as well, even though, of course, SLI is pretty much done for. The 3090 technically can use SLI, but it doesn't really look like it's going to be implemented too much, and the 3080 and below don't even have the little connections for SLI anymore. But that also goes to show how powerful these new GPUs are, that a single GPU can power 4K and even 8K gaming, while in the Pascal generation you really needed to SLI multiple GPUs in order to get performance equal to what one GPU can do now. Alright guys, if you're a Pascal 10 series owner, I hope that this video was helpful for you if you're considering an upgrade and you just wanted maybe a couple of reasons. Alright guys, so consider subscribing, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Are you still rocking a 10 series GPU? And I'll see you guys on the next video.